What is up, everyone? Welcome back to the Roots and Streams podcast. I'm your host, Matthew Llamas. Today, man, it's feel like it's been a minute since I had like an in-person. So if you're watching this, you obviously already know. If you're listening, you'll know in a minute that I do have a guest, and an in-person guest, somebody who's rather new to my life, but I would say has had a fairly solid, like, big impact, just like even on me mentally, like just, I don't know. He's a really cool dude. We ball together multiple times a week, learning more about him. And he just like, hey, you know what? I'm digging your podcast. Let me jump on. And I just expect this to be just a really open, interesting conversation. So without further ado, I'll introduce you, Adam Perry.
Hello, everybody. My name's Adam Perry.
Woo-hoo.
I'm a California native, and I'm the CEO of White Piano Group, a design firm, and I'm very excited. Thank you for having me, brother.
Oh, yeah, for sure. For sure. So we had talked a little bit on the phone, kind of like a little bit of background and just trying to feel each other out. And I know, like, I saw one entry point that I feel like can take us like everywhere, and that's education. And not like that you're an educator, just like our experiences in education, because you kind of shared something that I definitely like felt and was vocal with teachers. Like, I remember in high school for sure is where it stood out the most, where I was just that much more awake, and I was like, this is like daycare. Like, this is just like, we're just big kids in a daycare. That's what this feels like. Cause I don't know, it's cause I didn't want to do my homework or I just wasn't challenged, or I don't know what it was, but I know you shared something like that, a sentiment. And like, yeah, you want to share kind of what you were sharing with me.
Yeah, and I actually think you made a great point there, and I think it could be both of those things. I think for me personally, I had never thought that they were catering to a mind like mine. And that's actually a good name for something, mind like mine. But they never catered to my mind, and I felt that there was just an extreme amount of topics and subjects that were being discussed that I didn't necessarily desire to learn. And of course, you should always be open to learning anything and everything. But at that time, you're not really thinking about that. You know, you have an immature mind. You're thinking about what you want and what you desire in life. And for me, I didn't resonate with anything, and I felt that I already knew my superpower, which was talking to people, and I love to do it. And I felt that if I can find a way to do that at all times for the rest of my life, that's what I would do. So I knew that that was my calling.
That superpower definitely does not fit with the structure of school. And just to give a little bit of like context, so you're 24,
Yes.
Right? And so your experience with education wasn't even that long. Like in high school, wasn't even that long ago. That was like 6-7 years ago or so. For me, like I'm 39, and that was like over 20 years ago.
Yeah.
So like it doesn't sound like it's changing very much.
Definitely not.
So how in school, so knowing your superpower, like how did that play out? Like you were just talk, like you always getting marks, like you like to talk a lot, disrupting the class.
Exactly. So that's what I was regarded as, was essentially a class clown because of the level of disruption that my communication would admit me to.
Yeah.
So always wanted to talk to the students that were sitting right beside me. I just always felt like I was at recess, especially being in a room filled with a bunch of people that I knew nothing about. It was like putting a kid in a candy store, and that's how I felt. That's how I feel about people. I love getting to know people, love hearing their stories, and I feel that there's so much education in other people's stories that can teach you the same things that anything else can. So
yeah, I love that. I would say, like, I think that's probably another thing we have in common, probably just a little different in the sense that, like, I definitely love being around people because I know everybody has their story. And like, even when you see somebody that you may think you dislike, there's a story behind like that angry person, right? Or that person that just comes off a certain way, like they're super confident. So did you end up finishing high school? I remember you mentioning, I'm not trying to put you on blast. I think it's a part of but I think it can kind of even lead us into like where you are now, or like just been your journey since.
So I dropped out of high school around the first week of my senior year. It's my
Okay.
last year.
Mm.
Dropped out. Why would I do that? And funny enough, I was already making custom clothing for high
Oh
profile clients
wow.
and celebrities. So
Okay.
already knowing that I wanted to pursue fashion or something within design,
Mm-hmm.
it kind of led me down to that decision.
Mm-hmm.
And then after that, my mother she cried to me saying that it was her dream for me to at least graduate high
High
school.
school.
So I went back to this school that essentially you just do packets.
Oh,
You do
okay.
packets and you do this very minimal form of exercises. So I finished very quickly there and then
It's literally
continued
the
to
same
pursue
thing. So
fashion.
my daughter who you just met, that's what I explained to you. The same thing. She'll go pick up her packets, talk to a couple people, and just like she can get done in 2 years versus 4 years if she wants to,
Exactly.
and doesn't have to deal with all the like social, BS and like, yeah, she could just finish when she's done and that's it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I think, and that independency grows as you grow, and it definitely helps cater to being your own person and your
Mm-hmm.
own understanding of yourself and your workflow and your ability to execute
Mm.
things.
Would you say that that was probably one of the? Did you grow in that? Like, did you notice something different, or like, did you feel because you were in charge of your own time, in charge of like how long it was going to take you to do it? Did you like embrace that, or did you just see it as an obstacle to get out of the way?
I think a little bit of both because at the time I didn't even want to be in school as a
Yeah.
whole,
Uh huh.
but I definitely being in the opportunity or been given the opportunity to enter a place where I can kind of have my own schedule, curate my own workflow, and complete the exercises at my will.
Mm-hmm.
That definitely gave me power in understanding what I was or how I was able to structure my time, and I think
Mm-hmm.
that's super important is structuring your time so much so that you understand everything that's always going on.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was almost like a introduction to like you being an entrepreneur now, because you have to be, I mean, you're controlling your time, right? Like with your
Exactly.
business, you said you're CEO, so really you're reporting to yourself to like whether or not you can create like a schedule for yourself and manage your time and all that. One thing that I kind of connected with is like you mentioned your mom, and I think for somebody, so it even says a little bit, and we can like crack into this, is like the fact that you would listen to your mom and it's like, you know what, mom, I love you enough to go back and finish high school instead of just saying like screw you. I think that that does say a little bit about your guys' relationship. Would you say that like family or your parents, and you don't have to bash them or anything if it's not that, like, because I do believe like in in honoring your parents, but also being honest about what happened, right? So,
Yeah.
and I'm not saying we got to go there, but it just sounds like you had some reverence for your mom,
Yeah.
and she's like, I'm gonna do this for you. Yeah, can you talk a little bit about that?
Absolutely. There's a great quote, and it's something that I hadn't realized until I obviously, for one, heard it, but also as I grew older and more mature.
Mm-hmm.
It said, if my parents were the parents that I wanted them to be when I was younger, I wouldn't be the man that I'm proud to be today.
Mm.
And I feel like, they've obviously raised my brother and I in a very respectable and respectful household
Mm-hmm.
towards one another. Uh, Not everything's perfect, of course,
Of course.
but yeah, I think the level of respect that I have for my mother is the way that every person should respect their mother.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously we have some tough times, and have had some tough times, but she birthed me.
Yeah.
She deserves everything from
Yeah,
me.
you're grateful.
I'm very grateful for everything for one,
Mm-hmm.
but definitely my mother, and she's catered to my brother and I in every single way that a kid would desire to be.
Yeah,
So
that's awesome, dude. Would you say that your one of your superpowers, because we talked about this and it's just something that I want to dig in a little bit, is like, dude, even the way you walked into my house, like it just it was like confirming for me like how just confident you are, but in a humble way, in a way that's like not over trying to overpower anyone. I mean, maybe on the basketball court sometimes too, but basketball is different. But like in a way that's like welcoming. Like I know for sure I wasn't playing with you very long, but I was like, and that's something I struggle with, is being confident, especially on the basketball court. Like I need to practice, need to know I get in my practice a lot, which is not a bad thing to feel confident the next day to play like in a league game or something. But I just like see your confidence and the way you came in and like introduce yourself to my daughter instead of like kind of just awkwardly walking in and like, oh, she didn't stand, like she's just over there. Like you, I don't know, you just came with like this presence of like confidence. And where do you think that comes from, or like what's been your experience with that?
That's a great question, and I don't even know if I would regard that as a side of my confidence. I
Mm,
would just say it's humility
mm,
and my desire to know people, meet as many people on this
mm.
planet while I'm here.
Yeah.
So I think it just stems from that. Is really just my deep desire and consistent yearning to talk to people, meet people, make sure that they know that I am a good person,
For sure.
and that's all that I want to emit into the world. So I always say the energy you exert on someone else is the energy you exert within yourself,
Mm.
and I always try to give good. So
Yeah.
yeah, and I mean it very well could be perceived as confidence, but it's really just, you've been so welcoming having me at your house. The least I could do is introduce myself to your daughter, who
Yeah.
this is her house as well.
For
So
sure. For sure.
but yeah. But in
Um.
terms of the confidence, sorry.
Yeah. No, go
In
for it.
terms of the confidence, it definitely lives within me, and
Mm.
it's very clear
Mm-hmm.
in the way that I speak, in the way that I listen to people, and just understand what motivates and incentivizes people. But I think in that perspective, it's more so just I love people. I
Mm-hmm.
really love people.
Mm. When did you when did you, so you talked about superpowers, and we've talked about this before, like when did you notice that confidence was one of your superpowers?
Honestly, probably when I first had moved to Italy, because my whole life, the way that I have been had been undervalued. The
Mm.
the person that I was, I felt, was always a person that everybody wanted to change. That's not
Mm.
right to say that you're going to be the best. That's not right to say you're going to do all these things and achieve all these things before you've done it. And
That's
I feel like when I
crazy.
got to Italy,
Mm-hmm.
I became surrounded by who is now my business partner and other people that work with us
Mm-hmm.
and our employees of White Piano Group. I became surrounded by people who didn't necessarily go against that, but
Mm-hmm.
they were more so supportive of who I was already. And I think
Mm.
that was so grand in finding a society, or even a group of people that can appreciate who I was, which I
Mm-hmm.
never found anywhere else.
Yeah. That's pretty crazy that you had to go like 13 hours on an airplane. I don't even know how many miles that is, like 1,000 miles.
Like
It's
7,000 miles.
7,000
Yeah.
miles. To find a group of people that like just saw you, and that's so important to have, right? Um, to be seen, right, and to have somebody who can like tell, like help share with you what they see in you. Because before that, I think, not that there's like bad people around us necessarily, and I mean you can criticize people however you want to that you grow up around, but it's kind of like when you're around somebody for a long time, you don't really notice like when their hair gets a little bit longer or when they gain a little bit weight. They just always look the same.
Hmm.
And I think sometimes maybe in our community and the people around us, they may not notice when you start like developing that confidence if you're not paying really close attention. Like I have 4 kids, and so I try to do that. I try to be in tune with their personality, pay attention to their traits, like when they might do something not so smart, like
Yeah.
gonna burn down the house, like pay, but also to like their strengths.
Yeah.
Like my son, very much like you, he likes to talk. He likes connecting with people. He likes to make people feel like welcome and like heard, like people. And so for me, like paying attention to that helps me to make sure that, like I'm putting opportunities in his way or letting him know who he is. But it's just crazy to me that you had to go so far away.
Yeah, honestly. It's crazy because you go so long being a certain way only for people to tell you that you're not living the right way, or like that you need to change who you are.
Mm-hmm.
And that happens so frequently with me. But I feel that I'm actually like the most real person in the world,
Mm.
because like I'm transparent about who I am from the moment you meet me. The
Yeah.
things that I say, you know that they're only stated because it's like what I believe,
Mm-hmm.
you know? And I feel like a lot of people kind of shield themselves off of like maybe, oh, I don't know this person yet, so I shouldn't show them my full self. But I'm like, dude, I give everybody myself. Like, I
Mm-hmm.
don't care. I have enough energy and confidence inside of me to where I can give that to everybody and still have some left for myself.
Yeah. And I think so for me, my struggle is like trying to control how people perceive what I'm doing. Not and so in that I'm actually rejecting myself.
Yeah.
And you're saying you're just accepting who you are in this moment. And I think we don't do this enough. Accepting people, giving people enough grace for like, this is who you are in the moment doesn't mean like I can't grow or like change my mind or learn something. Or, but this is just who I am right now. And I've heard like when I know better, I'll do better.
Yeah.
But it's not going to stop me from walking my walk as confident as I can because this is all I know and this is who I am. Not in a way where like you're just pushing people to the side, but like you're just walking in who you are today.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think that's the highest form of knowing yourself, right? Is like, and when you can know yourself best, you immediately become a person of positive influence to anybody and everybody you engage with. So like, you know, the person that doubts themselves is also going to place that doubt on others. But a person like myself that would believe in myself, someone says to me they want to go become the next best soccer player, I believe you.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
do it. I say the same things about myself, so why wouldn't I? If another person has the will to say it, and I've seen it enough on the opposite side of the coin, why wouldn't I believe the person that is willing to say it? Because it's actually very rare. It's just scarce.
Mm-hmm. And there's probably already enough people telling that person that they're not going to be. So why not be that odd person out that's going to like pump them up?
Yeah.
Can you remember like a moment or a story, and you may feel like I'm cherry picking a story, but if it's that one, it is what it is. But like a moment or a story like where you noticed that like, oh man, these people see me for who I am, and it's allowing me to see like who I am. Like it just kind of woke up that confidence, or like not wake up, but just like confirmed it.
Yeah, that's actually a really great question. And I don't know if this story is going to be the one to give you what you
know
wanted.
what we're talking about. Yeah.
I do know what you're talking about, but I'm not going to say that story.
Okay,
I have
that's
a different
fine.
one.
That's fine. That's fine.
So this is specific to business, but I was in a meeting one time with a very, very successful and respectable CEO. And this is in Vancouver, Canada. And I went in there being very respectful. And of course, beforehand, this guy has lived on this planet 40 more years than me. Of course, with all due respect, I don't feel the need to walk in completely confident, overbearing the way that I usually am.
Yeah.
So essentially, like you said, I was stopping myself from being myself. And what's crazy is after the meeting, he gave me a piece of advice and he said, you should come in here with more energy. And I said, and that was the moment where I said, I'll never stop myself from being me. You know what I mean? So at that moment, I stopped myself from the confidence, from the energy that I usually emit into any atmosphere I enter. And that was just a massive learning curve for me. Was like, people want you to be you.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? They can feel when you're refraining from delivering who you actually are. So why not always give that?
Yeah.
And that was a moment of reinstating that into my mind.
Kind of made you feel like I'm not going to miss another opportunity to like just be who I am and to show like just to be present like in myself. Yeah, and I don't know, there's something with confidence though. I will say that can rub people the wrong way. And I get there's like a arrogance for sure is different. And like I'll even take it like people had problem. I know people that live in LA, and I'm not a Lakers fan, and that's a whole other story. But there's people that didn't like Kobe or MJ, right? Because they were so confident. Like I know people that just that's like if you asked them why didn't you like Kobe? Oh, he was just so cocky. He was just so confident. And yeah, I get it. However, I think at the level he was playing at, like I've heard different NBA players, like from worst to best, talk about how you have to believe you're the best player on that floor.
Yeah.
Whether you're coming off the bench or like, you're just playing because somebody got injured. If you're not believing that, like, not that like you're ruining the game, right? But that you're capable and that like you're one of the best players, then there's no way they're going to eat you alive.
Yeah.
And that's like, if you take that and like what you're saying, I think it's what do we build around that? So like for them, they have to be thinking, I have to be the best, or I have to believe I'm the best because I want to help my team win. Right. And for you, it's like, I'm coming in here, I'm confident, and I want to help people feel like that they are seen, that they are known, that I care about them, that somebody else, if nobody else in this world is going to say hi to you, I'll say hi to you today. I'll look at you in the eyes. I'll be present with you. I'll ask you how your day is, and I'll actually care. Right. And it's like, what do we like? I think that's important. Like, what are you doing with that confidence is important. I know that's not really a question.
No,
but
it's
just
not.
sharing yeah.
But hey, it's a great statement. I think there's a lot of value in that statement that I myself hadn't even recognized as that.
Mm-hmm.
But it was a great definition nonetheless.
Mm-hmm.
I agree completely.
Yeah. So like, and I think what I was getting at, now that I've got a backtracking, is like, we all just kind of, if we can all just be comfortable in with who we are, like, it creates such a better team.
Yeah.
Like, just be confident enough to just be present in who you are. Like, maybe you're not going to be the most talkative person, but you're still confident. Like for me, like, I question things a lot. Like and sometimes overtly, and I need to dial that back. But being more comfortable with that, and like not saying, people are frustrated because I'm always questioning things, or it's holding us back. Because I remember at like one of the last jobs I worked, people would get frustrated sometimes, but then sometimes what people would appreciate, like, dude, I'm glad you asked that question, because like, yeah, well, why the heck are we doing this? Like, it's not making any sense. But if I didn't have the confidence of like using that power, I think we just all have to be comfortable in using our power. So Italy. So you're fresh back from Italy.
Yes.
About just only a couple of weeks, no?
About 2
weeks. How did this trip that you had, it was a business one, right?
Yes.
Like, how would you compare that to like your first time going?
That's a great question. Well, this trip there was specific tasks at hand while going there.
Mm-hmm.
So going there, I had a few things to acquire, had some pending clients to talk to,
Mm-hmm.
close some deals. And in regard to when I first moved there was when I first went there was when I moved there.
Mm-hmm.
So my first time going to Italy was actually the moment that I began living there as well. And I went there completely alone at the age of I believe 19 or 20.
Wow.
Yeah.
And you just decided to like move there, not just go check it out. You're like, I'm doing this. You had a place to stay, I think.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
In Via San Paolo 15.
Okay. Where's Via San? Oh, but that was
the center of the city.
Okay, so you were in
right next to Duomo in Milan.
Milan. Okay, that's right. What was it like preparing for that, or like what made you choose Italy? What was your goal to go in there?
The goal was definitely to enhance my network in the actual fashion industry, because I had been making custom clothing prior for celebrities and influencers and whatever. But I think the main priority was just enhancing my network, growing my network, because I knew that when I came back to the States, I was going to start a business. So I needed to find some way to have an international business from the start. I thought very deeply about what type of people were going to be in Milan, what type of the culture, the language, what type of barriers I would experience. And of course, I go through anything, but I think the goal was definitely just in expanding my network and being able to utilize that for the organization that is now known as White Piano Group.
Mm-hmm.
So that was really the main priority, is expanding my network, learning another language. But in terms of the road to leaving to Milan was, I studied the language for 8.5 months or so prior to going.
Decent amount of time. Yeah.
Didn't do anything for me.
Yeah,
I couldn't speak to anybody.
Adequate, but it's decent.
I understood a fair amount, especially because I speak Spanish fluently.
Yeah.
But it became very difficult when I arrived because I hadn't got that initial communicative ability within the language with other people. So, they were speaking at a pace that I just didn't even understand. It was, and that often happens. You have this whole outline as to what you think is going to happen, and you project what you feel should and would happen, but pretty much it usually goes down the success route, but the intervals and the elements in between change and they shift. But gratefully, I mean, God set that up for you.
Yeah, definitely. What so I'm thinking like I have nephews who are like little younger than you. Um and did definitely listen in. Like what would be like in making that move? I wouldn't say what would you do different, but like what are some things that you would advise to somebody that's like either starting a business, not necessarily going to Europe, or if you can throw something in there if you want to, but like, and I'm talking like just it could be emotionally or just like business wise, just lessons that are in there that you would give to somebody that's maybe like 20, right?
Yeah, I'd say live alone. I'd say appreciate the level of isolation that you're going to endure, and understand that at the end of that tunnel, the light actually is everything that you're going to learn about yourself. And, going back to what we discussed earlier about when that confidence really grew and when my conscious understanding of that confidence within myself grew, that's how it happened, is really just isolation, being so far removed from everybody and anything that I used to know. And that experience allowed me to really just harness and garner all of the beliefs that I have, and all of the beliefs that I wanted to have, and all of the, I guess, who I wanted to be in this world became a reality when I became isolated. So, growing up, you have your parents telling you what they think is best for you. But once again, what they think is best for you.
Yeah.
So like, I'm a huge proponent of letting people decide and make decisions for themselves. And of course, they may be too young to do that, but at a certain age and as you grow as an adult, it becomes way more imperative that you kind of find out what you actually believe in. Stop living off of what was taught to you versus what you can teach yourself.
Okay, I'm super curious about this living in isolation. Probably the closest isolation I had was like staying up to 4 a.m. playing Madden when I was in college.
I was not expecting
that. No, and I think it naturally happens as you get older. You do start drifting, even if you don't have like a physical way to do it. Just thinking as I got older, you just even feel yourself disconnecting, and it's like I think it's healthy, but I want to hear a little bit about if you're willing to share, like what did that practically look like? Were you trying to cut out from social media? Were you cutting, like maybe not cutting out because that sounds harsh, like certain people? Were you meditating? Were you reading something specific? I don't know. What was in there?
Yeah, that's a great question. I'd say, I mean, I moved out there during the hype of COVID. Like it was, so I had to be, I had to be in my apartment. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
like I had
sure.
zero choice. The only way you could leave is if you show the army guard at every street where you're going, which was the grocery store.
Well, you moved into like a movie. Like.
Yeah. That's crazy that you said that because it was literally like looking through a new lens.
Whoa.
And I also talked to you about my lens theory.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I moved there during the hype of COVID, so I had no choice but to be isolated. My first day, I mean, who am I going to communicate with outside of myself? Because everybody's stuck inside. Not many people are traveling on the streets because obviously by law they couldn't.
Yeah.
So that was really what allowed me to reach that point. But in terms of how I filled my mind, I began reading. I think I've never met a smart person that doesn't read consistently and always. Reading became apparent to me. Also, I began to listen to a lot of podcasts. Not that I hadn't before, but I think shutting out music became a vital and key point in my life because I was listening to rap music and they're talking about,
I know
booty and all these things.
Parties,
and I'm just like, sure, that's cool.
For
but
sure.
like that had no relevance into what I wanted to do. So, in fact, when you're listening to that continuously, it's actually what your subconscious mind begins to curate in your mind
Mm-hmm.
as you go on about your day,
Mm-hmm.
even if you're not listening to it
I
anymore.
agree.
So when I turned my focus to only things that were going to benefit the desired future, that's when it really became powerful. Was
Mm.
my focus solely became, Miles Monroe videos and Eric Thomas and guys like that were like truly trying to motivate people to just change their life.
Mm-hmm.
So for me, that was a huge thing, was shifting my focus and understanding that what I focus on was crucial in devising the desired future.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. It's almost like I mean, you mentioned go for it. Um, yeah, like being kind of set up in that situation where it's like I'm making this big move to Italy network. You probably had, you probably had what you arrived and experienced is not had to be night and day what you went and you were expecting. But sounds like in a beneficial way because it like and I think a lot of people will share like how yes, COVID had challenges, like health wise, people passed away. It's really sad, but I think a lot of people got like that reset where they got shut down and they needed that, even though it didn't feel like the most pleasant thing. There's something to actually I mentioned this in last week's episode of like a Sabbath and taking time to rest and taking time to just like not do nothing but not keep doing the same like work and get your mind stuck in that and just not really like reflect, and I think even taking time to plug into people, and this is actually why I try to remember like to like videos on YouTube because there's real people behind that. Like there's real wisdom behind like these books, right? These people have lived things. I'm not saying every book is great, but I think there's some level of reverence I have to people who like write things because they're sharing their life experience.
Yeah.
Right? I can't hate on that. Like, and they're sharing it with people to just like learn from it, and you could take as much or as little as you want. I think there's very much like connected for me in the Bible, in stories that people are sharing, and so for me, sometimes this may sound sacrilegious, but like in the same way that the Bible is trying to share all that wisdom, I think people that write books, they're just like echoing that to me. I'm not saying those books are holy or anything like that, and I don't want to take, but if we want to, if you want to, we can go down a theological rabbit hole. But but I do like definitely read. I'm reading a book about 7 deadly sins right now, and like how to practically like look at all of those with today's lens. And yeah, I love reading too. It definitely opens up my mind and it allows me to hear from somebody that's like outside of like anywhere I could even like connect to. Um, so how, what did that look like? So how long did you live in Italy? So were you stuck there throughout all of COVID?
Yeah, for the most part. I moved there right when it was like declared the worst place to be. So, well, obviously it wasn't the worst place to be. It's beautiful, but
Yeah.
but in terms of COVID and its damage to the world, that was the worst place to be. I lived there for 3.5 years,
Mm-hmm.
and I consistently go back and forth. We have clients out there, business out there, but yeah, what was the second part of the question? Because that was super long.
Yeah, that
I'm
wasn't a
sorry.
question. I was just kind of expanding on what you were sharing.
Yes, true.
And but I was just sharing how like reading, taking time to rest, reflect is so important.
Yeah.
Right. And that was kind of forced upon you. It was like a blessing in disguise, as someone may say. Um, is that how you look at it?
Yeah, for sure. I look at everything as a blessing now
Mm.
because of that experience.
Yeah.
Honestly, I mean, even my relationship with Jesus Christ got better.
Mm-hmm.
I think that it got to a point where my understanding that everything and anything that occurs in my life was a part of his design and part of his plan.
Mm-hmm.
So I think understanding that and being able to live through that perspective, there's actually nothing bad that ever happens.
Mm.
there's a bad day coming at some point. Why live it before it even comes? You
Yep.
know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
we're pretty aware of everything that's gonna happen. Of
Mm-hmm.
course, you know, your parents are gonna die. I fear that day. I don't fear that day, but you know, that's gonna be a terrible day.
Yeah.
But at the same time, like, this is something we knew was bound to happen.
Mm-hmm.
And I think when you can live through a perspective of seeing that everything that's gonna happen is already in front of us, is already knowledge to us, is already information that we've held deep inside of our society for ages and ages and ages, you become a lot happier as well,
Mm-hmm.
I feel. And I've certainly become a lot happier through that mindset is, yeah, just realizing that everything is as it should be and everything always works out perfectly.
For sure. For sure. I've heard you say that quote before. It's a beautiful quote.
Yeah, it's true. It's true.
Um, what's your favorite thing to eat in Italy?
That's a great question. Honestly, for the people that know me best, pizza.
Okay.
I really like pizza, man. Wow, there's
What
potatoes and
what kind of pizza?
actually this past trip in Milan,
Uh-huh.
I tried this new pizza that I had never tried before, but it was something salchicha. It had sausage on it. It had potatoes on it. It
Mm-mm.
had basil on it. It was spectacular. Honestly, it was one of the best pizzas I've ever tried in my life.
But like pizza, that does sound amazing. But like pizza as in like the style. So like I know
Mm,
in Italy it's very like especially if you're in Rome,
yeah,
you could still find like Naples style pizza,
yeah,
but or like Roman, which um is like thin. I don't know if you've been to Rome.
yeah,
I would
yeah.
imagine
Absolutely.
you've probably had to. Yeah. What's your
I like it
team on there?
the circular way. I like it the circular way, and I like it. I still have them cut it, bro. Like
Yeah.
I still have them
You
cut
asked
it.
them to cut it?
Yeah, every time. I,
They
I,
will too. It's not
yeah.
like yeah.
They're not opposed to it by any means, but
Hmm.
yeah,
No, for sure. I think when I went and then just like give you the utensils, like whoa, I can like fold this thing and like eat it like
yeah,
this. Um, but no, they will for sure. And I've had even especially when I was in Rome, guys that will like they kind of just notice you're American and they'll just like just give me your pizza and they'll just
yeah.
like cut it up for you. I have to agree. Like if I had to choose pizza or pasta, um, oh, it's tough now that I'm kind of settling on it.
Yeah, it really
But
is.
I'm a sucker for pizza napolitana, like
Mm,
for like just the soft crust, like on the edges, right? Like the thin. Um, I don't know. It's delicious. I've had it in Naples. It wasn't like the best pizza in Naples, like the restaurant, but just eating it in Naples, like fried pizza. I don't know if you ever had fried
yeah,
pizza
of
in
course.
Naples. Um, yeah, pizza's amazing.
I actually think those holes in the walls are the best restaurants for
Mm-hmm.
pizza. My first what was it? My first day in Milan, right next to where I was staying, was this it was called Turkish kebab and pizza, which is all over Italy, of course, because there's a lot of Turkish people there.
Yeah.
And I went there, and I promise you, all I put was like jalapenos on top of my pizza, and it was a cheese pizza. It was probably one of the best too. That was like number two of all time for me.
Okay.
So those little, yeah, it goes into be willing to try everything because you'll never know what's gonna happen.
For sure. I mean, I took my in-laws to Rome. So I had already been to Italy twice and to Rome once. And if you've never been to Italy and like you think you're going to get what you experience here as Italian food, you're in for a shock. Like I think it's for a beautiful, delicious, like simple like shock, but just hold your expectations at the door.
Yeah,
Because you're not like there. Alfredo does exist, right? Like in Rome, there's a restaurant, but like if you get like chicken Alfredo, there's just certain things that it doesn't fly in Italy.
yeah,
But I'm all for it. Like it's delicious food.
I agree.
Yeah, I just figured since we're talking so much Italy, honestly, when I go, I don't frequent many museums. Like yeah, I'll go see like Colosseum, the Vatican and stuff, but I'm all about the food. Like I get gelato every day I'm in Italy. I don't know if you.
It's incredible. Not every day. I mean, to do
I
that for 3.5 years,
yeah.
I'd be,
You were there for
you know,
3.5 years.
yeah.
Yeah. That's interesting. So what did that look like? So you were there all through COVID. Like they won, I think, European Championship. That was a big deal while they were there. While you were there.
Inter Milan?
No. Just Italy.
Oh, okay.
They won.
That's right. That's
yeah,
right. You're
they
correct.
went crazy. I'm sure you saw like people going crazy in the streets for that one.
I have videos to show you.
What did those 3 years look like? Like from I'm talking about like beginning, probably culture shock, figuring out like how you fit in or what you're gonna do. COVID hits. Like what did that look like? You talked a little bit about like isolation. Like if you can share like maybe some stories, some experiences like in between those 3 years.
Yeah, absolutely. So initially, I had to figure out a way as to why I was going to Italy because during COVID, they weren't granting visas for no reason.
Oh, okay.
And so I enrolled into this school called the Istituto Marangoni, and it's a fashion design school. And so that was my way to get a visa. And of course, I don't like school, but I did that purely for the reason of my goal and objective being to grow my network. So went there, and funny enough, it actually worked out pretty well because I learned an array of skills that I now obtain and possess still. However, I don't utilize them because my team generally is a part of the design process for most of the things, and I'm more on the end of sales and acquiring business for the company and giving them work to do.
Yeah.
But in regard to my experiences there, I mean, I met so many great people. I feel like there was a level of appreciation for life that you just don't get anywhere else. I've been many places. South America, I've been to North America. Obviously, we're here right now. Central America and Panama, other places. And I felt that in Italy, it was as if there was a level of appreciation for life that was unprecedented and it didn't exist elsewhere. There was the time for what truly matters in life was the objective for them, right? So overworking themselves was never an issue because they were overworking themselves with their family, if that makes sense. And I think what they found to be more of an impressive lifestyle, I grew to appreciate and understand and love as well. And definitely coming back here allowed me to integrate that into my life. And one specific experience that led me to that was a good friend of mine from Calabria, Pianopoli. He invited me down there to stay with him and his family. And I went down there, and essentially Pianopoli is a population of maybe 2,000 people, 3,000 people.
Oh, wow.
That's not a lot of people,
No,
especially when you're from LA.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So I went down there. Everybody knew each other. They saw my friend Thomas driving in, and everyone's honking. Everyone's like cheering. It was as if there was a parade because he had returned to the city, and just those experiences, the dinners, the food that was being curated, catching the food that was being prepared, a lot of things. It was just like you felt as if you were in unison with the world and Earth as a whole. Like,
yeah.
I don't know, they grow their own crops and they grow their own food. The agriculture there is incredible. Those experiences taught me so much about things that I hadn't necessarily valued before I had went there because I'm not from there.
Yeah.
And being from this big of a city, you're always trying to find that next thing. And of course it's good to be that way. And that's why we have such entrepreneurial success out here in the States. But at the same time, I think there's value in being able to trust the path enough to spend some extra time with the things that matter. Because inevitably, where you end up is where you're going to end up. Yeah. It doesn't matter if I'm working 15-hour days. I've seen success. I've seen, business owners literally make $1 million in their first year.
Yeah.
We didn't do that. You know what I mean? So it really, I think you just have to understand that everything is as it should be. And there's a level of positivity and ownership to your own life that comes with that.
Yeah. Dude, that's so beautiful to like that you experienced that. And I know you didn't necessarily like um advise or like tell like younger people to travel, but I would even say like even outside of the isolation, if you can afford it or if you can scrape travel, because like something to seeing other cultures, expanding your mind, and especially a place like Italy, where it sounds like you almost time traveled.
Yeah.
You got to see what life was like before, like I talked about it just yesterday, the affluenza virus. You know,
Yeah, yeah, no, I know.
you know what I'm talking about. So like, and in the sense of like, all right, I'm living this way. I got to figure out how I live that way, and
Yeah,
then figure out how I live that way. And it's like we're just always chasing this uncatchable like money and lifestyle, and not just appreciating like, man, like my crops did really great, and like my cousins in town, and we're just gonna cook up some delicious food, gonna drink some wine, sit around and like laugh and talk and just enjoy like life,
yeah,
you know. I like and think you would agree. Like not all of Italy is like that. They definitely like modernize. A lot of Italians have moved out because they do seek this life that's more so predominant in the U.S. Um, but I think you having that, and correct me if I'm wrong, like you seeing that there's contentment in that, that there's happiness in that. I would imagine like changed like your perspective on the world like completely. Instead of like, okay, I know I don't like school, but I got to figure out how to get to college, or I got to figure out how to have like $1 million business because that's where happiness is. I got to have like the nicest car, or the nicest house, and the baddest girl, and like that's where happiness is.
yeah.
No, but you saw it somewhere in some small town with 2,000 people, right? Like humbly. Um, Tell me about how that effect. I don't know if you thought about it like that when I'm explaining.
I understand what you're saying. I don't think
Yeah.
I've ever delivered that label on it,
Mm.
or placed that label on it, but I think it definitely, like I said, it I was able to extract that or extrapolate that and integrate it into my life. So
Mm-hmm.
that goes in. Okay, this is perfect actually that you said that, because this goes into the glasses, right?
Uh-huh.
I have this I have this philosophy that every experience you have, or every grand experience you have that takes you to a place where you feel like your life changed,
Mm-hmm.
is actually a new set of lens.
Mm.
And you're born with a pair of glasses, and each lens you're able to place and wear at the same time. And what I've been able to extract from that is all of the lenses that came from that experience.
Yep.
I was able to always just either place them all on at one time and be able to live through that,
Mm-hmm.
or I can refrain from having a certain lens and be able to analytically look at a problem, an issue, or whatever the case may be,
Mm-hmm.
and look at that from the perspective that I learned from X experience, and be able to grab from all the experiences of life, and be able to grab almost as if it's scientific, and I'm embedding it back into my brain by memory,
Mm-hmm.
and and honing in on that mindset that I took on from that experience and utilizing it in current day.
Mm-hmm.
But that's yeah, that's how I already saw it that way, but being able to integrate that lens definitely wouldn't have happened had I not had that experience.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But in terms of, you said I didn't mention the telling kids to travel. I agree completely. I think there's this quote, and it said, "I never let schooling get in the way of my education." And
Yeah.
that doesn't necessarily mean schooling, but I think I've always believed, and I've always felt, and I've always resonated with the fact that just real life experiences, talking to people, hearing their stories.
Mm-hmm.
Books are a form of education, right? Like that in itself, in my opinion, can
Mm-hmm.
go such a far and more efficient way of learning, because you'll begin to enjoy what you're reading more.
Mm-hmm.
And there's also another quote, and it said, read what you love until you love to read.
Mm.
And that is a very key component of success.
Yeah. That's something I tell my kids a lot, actually. I was like, you don't hate reading. You just hated the books you were reading. And that took me until like I was probably around your age or a little bit later, like later 20s, where I started finding things I like to read. It was probably mainly on the internet, like articles. I was like, oh man, I'm reading a lot. And then I started taking my kids to the library. I'm like, I love the library. Like, that's just, there's one right here. And we used to go like to the physical library like all the time. Um, and yeah, so anybody who is like, if you think you don't like reading, just try to find a book that you like. I know in school we get told a lot of like, we have to read this, right? So one, there's already that like oppression that we're feeling like, oh man, somebody's like holding this over me. So that's already creating a bad relationship with that, you know, piece of material. And then you didn't choose it, right? But yeah, I would dare anyone to just go to the library or start looking for a book. You'd be surprised like how much. I think anyone loves reading. Anyone loves learning.
I think anyone could love anything.
Yeah.
I always say this. I swear it's a great point, in my opinion.
Yeah.
At least. But there's a great point in saying that if you spend enough time with something, you'll learn to love it. And I certainly have disliked a lot of things and began to spend enough time with it to where I'd understand it. And through understanding, by the extension of understanding, you begin to love that thing. And people just don't give enough time and appreciation to anything anymore. You know, like it goes to social media and the way that it affects our minds and our attention spans and everything. And I feel like that has a great deal of problematic circumstances that derive from that. But I think if you are willing to and spend enough time with something, you will begin to thoroughly enjoy it. Whether a song like this is another example. You hear a song on a Monday and
I know
it was the worst song ever. You're like, I really don't like this. Then it's Friday. You and your girlfriend or your wife got into an argument. Not you.
Yeah, never.
You and your wife get into an argument, and essentially, that song speaks to you like it was the Bible. You know what I mean? Like that song speaks to you like the best education you've ever had, and it gives you a level of feeling heard and feeling understood in a way that you could never feel had it not been that Friday.
Yeah.
So, you know, you visited it Monday, it wasn't for you. You went back to it Friday, it was for you.
Yeah.
So I think if you just give things multiple chances and you spend enough time with things, you'll definitely grow fond of them.
For sure. You are 100% like on point on that. So recently had that experience. And I think it points as like, we are so quick to throw things away. And I mean that physically, like artistically, mentally. And it's just, if it didn't hit us fast enough, if we didn't feel that dopamine fast enough, if we didn't, you know, get the endorphins fast enough, must not be right. Because those are the only indicators we're looking at. But so there's this artist I really like. Her name is Doe. And I just like love her music. And mostly like her worship performances. And so I started following her. She came out with an album, and it wasn't what I was expecting. Like I put it on the car, and I'm like, it's okay, you know, because I was just listening to it just to like, I don't know, just kind of really neutral, and like really just for whatever reason it didn't hit. And then I start going through a time in my life really recently, like in like October, like my aunt, who I'm really close to, like my Nina passes away. I have my fourth child. Marriage is kind of rocky. Quitting my job, like everything's piling on. And something in me, like because I already had a little bit of context of that album, I was like, let me give this album one more time. And you talked about like it could be like reading the Bible. So pretty much that was like my therapy. Yeah. That album, like track 6 and down, I think that's around what it is, like on repeat for like 2 weeks. That was my therapy. I'd walk out and I would like and just get really patient, and just like part of my therapy was finding the grasshopper that's always out there.
Is that true?
Yes. Wow. This is 100% true. I listened to that album because I was just going through it, and like some of them I would just like cry and thinking like, man, how everything's gonna change for my family now that she's gone. Because this was like somebody who was like kind of the center of our family. You know, for Christmas, she's hosting, like everyone's at her house making all the tamales, right? She would help like make the menudo when our family gets together. She's the oldest sister, and she's my Nina. You know, she baptized me. I'm not Catholic, but still, like I was baptized. So I'm listening to it and just like helping me to reflect. And I still try to do it once in a while. Like when my mind's going too crazy, I go look for the grasshoppers outside, and just like spotting them helps to slow my mind down enough. And something with gardening, too, is like pruning things and like seeing the way things grow. And it's like, oh, I cut this too much, and now there's no fruit growing. It gets really poetic. But you were just like right on point though. Is like if we can just sometimes take our time with things and really like appreciate them and allow them to like, okay, what does this mean for me? This is speaking into me. And maybe not in the moment, but like it may come back and speak to you, like you're saying with your lenses, right? Like not taking things for granted, like trying to be present so that you can bring that back when, you may need it.
Exactly.
Yeah, I'm really bad at asking questions. I'm just,
It's all right. It's all right.
Nah, I'm just kind of just vibing with what you're saying, and I just wanted to share that because
thank you.
Yeah,
I like that a lot, actually. That could be a story. That could be a children's book, honestly. Finding the grasshoppers outside.
Yeah.
Like, honestly, I resonate with that heavily.
I've wanted to write kids' books. Actually, that's something I wouldn't mind doing, even in Italian. Yeah. Oh, real quick on Italian. So I'm like third, fourth generation, like Mexican, like Latino. So like Spanish in my extended family, in my immediate family, almost non-present. But like my grandparents spoke almost nothing but Spanish. So for me, learning Italian was a little bit harder because I didn't have like, there was a little bit there, but those Latin like language roots. It's been like 6 years and it's okay. Like I have like, I consider like an Italian sister who I talk to almost every week in Rome.
Wow.
But yeah, like that experience was definitely difficult, like learning the language. But I'm sure for you, like being there is probably was super helpful, like to be able to learn the language while you were there.
Yeah, for sure. I think, like I said, when I was learning here, it grew to be very difficult to try to speak the language. And then when I got there, it didn't elevate my experience at all because it felt as if I hadn't done any of that 8 months studying. And I think once it got to a point of me getting comfortable in the environment, in the atmosphere, and spending time out there and consistently trying to learn the language and utilizing as much as I knew as much as possible in every conversation with any Italian, that's what allowed me to further progress my ability to speak the language. So I always say, like, being able to communicate with other people consistently in that language is going to be the best decision you can make and the best for your ability to learn in the first place. Because, I've met people that wanted to learn Mandarin and they went to China and, they had a very disappointing experience because like they thought they were going to walk in there and, run over people that have spoken their entire life, you know? So, it didn't work out that way for them and nor did it for myself. But being able to consistently communicate with other people, being in that environment, being in the position to speak it, being in the position to mess up and have people help you and have people around you that will help you refine what you were incorrect on, whether it's grammar, whether it's the pronunciation, anything, that's really where you're going to learn something, and rather quickly, actually, because I think I learned the language in less than that time after pursuing it in the ways that I did. But I think you have to be very, very willing to talk and communicate in the language, even if you're not as confident in it. You just got to, because that's how you're going to learn.
Yeah.
Like I know people that would study the language on the back end and use it, here and there, but then, they ended up not being able to speak the language to their full ability or full extent. And for me, for example, I feel like it's embedded in me forever now because, me being such a communicative and expressive person, I was always trying to speak the language. I was always trying to learn more, learn what I could do better and learn how to just resonate with all of those people.
Yeah. I hear you saying like, there's a level of vulnerability to like being able to fully learn. Like, unless you're, and it's hard because I've experienced it. Because there's something in our brain that's holding us back, like that's so afraid of failing, right, and getting something wrong. But if you can like break that off and just like, you know what, I don't know that word, and just be like, like just get it wrong or say the English word, and it just takes like a whole like level of vulnerability to be able to really like learn something, I think.
I agree completely.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's what a lot of the people that's what a lot of people don't live by, and that's what I am.
Mm-hmm.
I'm vulnerable at all times. You know what I mean? Like I could do anything, and I really just however it's perceived is how it's perceived.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You're never going to be able to correctly, maybe not even verbally state what I feel or how I feel, and it makes sense to the right person, because it's like the song thing. They're hearing something else other than what you're saying and intending to say. So, very very difficult. Yeah, the world is difficult, man. When it comes to that, to that specific aspect, perception is a really weird thing, because you can always say one thing and people will take it. If you're in a room with 4 people, I guarantee you they will. Maybe 2 of them will have the same idea as to what you said, but if you have them restate it, it'll come out in 3 different ways.
Oh yeah, 100%. I agree with that. So we can keep vibing and on language, but I don't know. I kind of feel myself pausing to want to know, like, is there something that like you like are, I wouldn't say like musing on, or like kind of wrestling with, or just thinking about? I don't know, like right now, or maybe something you're reading, or just like, is there something on your mind that like you want to kind of dive into?
That's a great question. That is a really great question. Um, Musing on my mind is making sure this is business, but is making
fine,
sure my
it is.
creative team
Uh-huh.
has the capability to always be creative in the ways that they want to. And I think that's been one of the most difficult tasks for us, is creating internally for our own selves versus as a design firm, you're consistently creating for other organizations, other individuals. So we do, brand developments for celebrities or whatever. And we do packaging and the design for the packaging for other organizations. But, there's a difference in having creative people create for others and having creative people create for themselves, and the level of passion that comes with creating for yourself and just being able to, originate with something new, something that's never existed before. Because often when you meet with clients, they have a specific agenda that they want to stick with, or they have a specific audience that they need to cater to, or whatever the case may be. So you need to communicate to that specific audience. But I think there's just a really big difference in being able to curate a new audience, curate a new brand, and a new anything. So I think that's been a big thing for us, is trying to find a way to create something that's going to, be or have a high level of longevity to it, and impact a lot of people, and have my design team and creative team be able to be happy. Because, I had a conversation with my business partner actually a few days ago, and ever since we pivoted we were initially a fashion brand. We pivoted to a design firm, was a successful pivot. And, he came to me in all transparency, and he said, he's not feeling he was feeling conflicted due to his lack of passion in what we were doing, but it was also a very slow first quarter for us. It had been. And, essentially he came to me with that, and said, he wants to be able to find a way to have the creative team in unison work on something that could be outside of the organization, potentially even a brand of some sort. And so we got to talking about that, and this guy's brilliant, by the way. You should talk to him someday, because
hey, he's welcome on if he's digging the podcast.
Yeah,
for sure.
He's the first I left to Milan a designer. I came back a businessman, because he was...
This partner's in Milan.
No, he's in Canada.
Oh, okay.
He's in Vancouver, Canada.
Oh, okay.
Isaiah Pfeiffer. And he's my business partner. And when I met him and I saw what he was creatively capable of and his design ability, I immediately knew that was not my role. Like, I knew that was not for me, because there was a different level of admiration that he had towards the goal, towards the work, and his ability to tell a story through branding, through design, his ability to grab what's right in front of you and almost make you see something that already exists but you didn't even know was there is so powerful that I've learned so much from, and have been able to integrate mindsets and lenses from those points that he's pointed out to me. It's been incredible. But yeah,
no, so many things come to mind. One, like the quote of like, you know, always make yourself the dumbest person in the room kind of thing, you know, like when you realize somebody else is better, and or just keep like brilliant people around you. And then for sure, like, so I come from a background of like creativity, so I went to school to also like college to fulfill like my mom's dream.
Don't ever do that, kids.
But I mean, I appreciate it because, you know, there is some benefit to having a college degree and like, you know, getting a job, and like it helps to pay a job a little bit. Like when you just get a regular job, it's a little bit higher paying. You know, I started a family early, but I went to CSUN for like multimedia, which was a new major that I was doing, like from programming video games like to like acting in front of the camera. Like it was just, they try to make us really like broad. And so like the creative part, like you were sharing, like I got into graphic design for a little bit, and I was doing nothing but these boring like advertisement templates, and I try to make them like interesting. But for sure it was a damper on my creativity. I didn't feel like any life from what I was doing. It was just a job, you know? And I think as a creative person, you can only do that for so long. Like, yes, you're doing the tools and the movements of what like an artist or a creative person can do, but you're not really expressing yourself, which I think is kind of like what you're saying. Like maybe your art team is like at the core of them. There's always going to be something inside that needs to get out. Right. And so like, where is that platform? Where is that space? I don't know. Have you guys thought of like anything, or you just kind of just spitballing right now, or it's like, hey, or you just noticing the problem right now and kind of just
that specific problem that I had mentioned?
Yeah.
Well, it was the first that he had mentioned it to me, but to be honest, I noticed it in him a little bit prior. I feel bad that I didn't say anything, and we had a great conversation about this, and he knows I love him. I love you, Isaiah.
Sounds like it was a tough one.
Yeah, well, it was a great conversation. Plus,
yeah,
that's my job, is to curate a team and ensure that they're happy and able to work in the ways that they desire. So if he, especially being a co-founder and owner of the business, plus him being in the most important creative role in the business, it's probably important that he's happy doing it, right? So it's definitely something we initially came across, and yes, we have found something that can be beneficial towards his workflow and that we can integrate into the business. Nothing that I can disclose just yet, because it's something that nobody's doing, but it's something that's going to be a very good investment, if you ask me. Yeah, we could talk about it off camera, but
for sure.
But yeah, we definitely figured out a solution as to how we can further integrate something new into our operation that's going to be beneficial not only for the business, but obviously for our team, most importantly.
Yeah. Not that I'm trying to pry for it, but it just makes me like think of like, you know, companies are aware of this, like Google, you know, with their, what was it, like 30%, like 80-20 or like 70-30% time, where they allowed their employees a certain percentage of their time to do like their own projects. So like a lot of apps and tools have that Google now leans on have actually come from those projects that they let their employees do creatively with their pay time. On the side, not everything, obviously, right? There's going to be some level of like, it's not going to have return, but it sounds like it's been a big, like, you know, benefit to them and like their team. So
definitely. Thank you for that.
Yeah,
we definitely try to be as open as possible to our people creating new things and new ideas from any level. I mean, someone that's working on developing a garment, for instance, in India, if they really wanted to, I would be open to hearing them tell me what a strategy could be to streamline our product development phases or our product development processes. And he should, because he's a frontline worker and understands kind of what's going on in the facility that I'm not even able to tangibly see when I'm not there. So I think that's so profound and thank you for that, because I think that highlighted something to me that maybe I can even take further. Sorry.
Go for it.
I'm so sorry. I gotta use the restroom.
I'm just gonna freestyle while you're using the restroom.
Deal. I'm sorry, guys.
Nah, you're fine.
No,
you're good.
Back to the point of me dealing with a lot of people that thought that maybe when they initially meet me, I'm not being my authentic self.
Yeah.
I'm really just like a character out here. And people think or undermine the level of sincerity and transparency that I'm being when I'm just being me. And I make sounds and I, rephrase words that don't even exist. So I don't know. It just
No, I think there's a certain level of like looseness and like comfort, that like comfort. I don't know if that's the right word, but whatever. Like just like the people that you're closest with, like you could just say anything, and you can just either screw up or just say something like really offensive or like if you were to say to other people, maybe really offensive. Like we all do it. Like and not that like we should dwell on those things or like develop that kind of mentality, but like when we're with somebody that we really know we can be super vulnerable, like we can just be wide open. And I think bringing that in and like us being like a little comfortable with that, I'm all for it. I feel like I'm mature enough at this point, maybe at another time in my life. So I guess I have grace for other people that aren't there yet. But yeah, like just try to like love on people more than just like have them like figure it out and like judge by like one comment. Like, I'm not really about that.
Yeah. I show that I show me to everyone, so it's, I enjoy that. I mean, why wouldn't I? I can't be any other way.
Nah, it's dope, dude. Like I mentioned in the beginning, like when we were playing ball, like just your amount of confidence, like it like overflowed onto me, like, and I'm going to pull us towards actually like the theme of the podcast. Cause I believe that when we are like rooted, right? If like the idea that we're just like all a tree and like we have roots and we're trying to be like rooted to like sources that are feeding us life, right? And so it comes from the Bible, and so that in Psalms it's because like we're being rooted in like the Word of God and His life-giving like wisdom and just like everything that He provides in this world. But I think it can be beyond that. And so like for you, like so I'm using this metaphor, I know I'm like taking us a long way around, of like the fact that you have been able to kind of get rooted into your superpower, right? And like just have your confidence on everywhere you go and do it so invitingly and like humbly that like it also says that because you're rooted in that stream, right? In these streams that are giving you life and allowing you to be fully who you are, like then you have fruit that people can eat like in every season, right? So for me, like that was like fruit from you that I got to, harvest and like, oh man, I could use some confidence right now. Cause like maybe I take a bad shot or something, like I think basketball is very like, I don't know, in sports in general, like there's just like all these micro things that you could take that are so relevant to like life, cause like you can just have a terrible game, but like, is your team going to build you up or they're going to point fingers,
Definitely. Coach.
Yeah. Yeah, coach, if you're listening. But yeah, so I'll segue from that what are some things for you in life, and it can be now that you're plugged into or things that plugged into you that help like feed you in the past, whatever comes up in your mind, like that you like are rooted in or have been rooted in, or even trying to be more rooted in, to like, to keep your fruit going, to keep you nurtured.
Yeah, I think willingness to speak to anybody and everybody. You said earlier something that I heavily resonated with, which, correct me if I'm wrong. You said if no one in this world loves you, or no one is going to say hi to you, I will.
Mm.
And you said that, and I
Yeah.
really like that. I think being rooted in that is something that I was able to witness from both of my parents,
Mm-hmm.
which was they were so giving and so relentless with their efforts with everybody. And I think that's where my transparency and who I am stemmed from,
Mm-hmm.
was the kind of positions and experiences that they had embedded on us. And I came from a pretty great upbringing, I'd say. And they would still put us in positions to understand how other people were living and their lifestyles and certain hardships that they had to go through. So I think being able to couple that with the mindset that I innately grew up with and the confidence that I grew up with, that is something that I plan to be rooted in forever,
Mm-hmm.
and definitely will be,
Mm-hmm.
is just being able to give my best understanding, appreciation, gratitude, and level of commitment to people at all times and any time. And I think a lot of people should take upon that framework, because people run the world. People, like, you know what I mean? We are the most fascinating creatures on this earth, they say, and we're the only creatures that can curate our existence and
Mm.
tangibly create things that alter our experience here on earth. So being fond of one another and being good to other people is probably just the number one thing that I'd say people should stick to. Is just being willing to hear people. I see homeless people on the street and I don't think, oh, like, sucks for them.
Mm-hmm.
I think, like, there's a story behind that person, and there's also a person that probably wants to grow most times.
Mm-hmm.
So always willing to have a conversation with them, always willing to give them a piece of advice, food, anything. Just be
Mm-hmm.
willing to give in any way and every way. I
Yeah.
think giving is such a powerful thing, and you can't do it in a way that's seeking to be given back to.
Mm.
You have to do it, and it only works in a way where you give when it's completely out of the blue. You know
Mm-hmm.
what I mean? You didn't plan on doing it. You don't plan on doing it, but you do it because it just comes, and that's when it's most powerful.
Yeah.
But giving as a whole, I think, is just going to elevate everyone's experience,
Yeah.
whether verbally, whether someone needs ears to listen to, anything. I think just giving as a whole is probably the most important thing.
No, I agree 100%. And um, I know a lot of people listen in and they already know, like, I'll talk like about, my Christianity, and that's just what I'm rooted in. So it's like, I'm not trying to like convert anyone that's listening. I'm just speaking for myself. And I don't know why I feel the need to like disclaimer everything, but I don't know. I just feel like some people just
You don't want to get canceled, man.
no,
I'm
it's
just
not
kidding.
even it's not even getting canceled. I think I've talked to enough people deeply to know of all of like the questions and scars and like church hurt, and just don't want to be an echo of that, and just letting like people know I'm not coming from this place where I'm trying to push this on you, right? I'm not that guy with the megaphone in Vegas. Like, that's not me right now.
Yeah.
So that's probably why. Just trying to be sensitive with like, how I say certain things.
Sorry.
Yeah.
That's something I need to learn, because I might be that guy in Vegas with the megaphone.
Hey,
Unintentionally.
sometimes, yeah,
Because that's just who I am.
Yeah.
But I think that that's really powerful for me to hear, because that's becoming very aware of other people's feelings and things is not something that I'm used to, because I'm just so free falling in this world, so transparent, that sometimes I neglect how others could feel about things that I could say.
Yeah.
And that's something that I do want to learn. So that's in part to your question. That's something that I would like to go deeper in being rooted in.
Yeah.
Is understanding other people to the level that I can cherish their needs as well. When I state things, when I do things. Not that I don't already, but
but just being aware of that. So like, that's like ears to hear, eyes to see, right? Like that, because if you're not, then it's like you're just so oblivious. So so you are going to grow in that for sure. Like, yeah, it's going to be beautiful, and the fact that you're aware of it is huge. I think that's great. What I was going to mention though is like I'm trying to remember. Thanks a lot, Adam.
Sorry.
No, I'm kidding. That was a beautiful statement. I appreciate it. No, I got it. Generosity is what you're talking about.
Yes.
And so when I say this, I know it's rooted in the Bible, but I think there's just things in the Bible that whatever, you could take it religious and oppressive. I take it as it is a good description and like understanding of this human experience. And so like in the sense that like if we're created like in God's image, that's what the Bible talks about. So if you don't want to say God or Jesus, whatever, like the universe or whatever brought this into it, like existence, right, is a very giving thing, right? It's a very giving deity, is a very giving, whatever you want to call it. I'll call it God, Yahweh, Jesus. I don't have to, like, because I'm not trying to like, push that onto anyone, but it'd be hard to say that it isn't, right? Because like crops grow here, like it rains on everybody, not just like the countries that worship like the true God. It rains on all of them to all have food, right? It allows everyone to have like to have offspring, right? And to enjoy the smile of their baby, right? And I get it, bad things do happen in this world, but there's so much that has been given, right? And so much life that's given in this world. So when we can be an echo of that, so that's like what being an image of God means, is like to be almost like standing in like, how do I explain this without getting overly theological, but just being like a representation, like having characteristics that kind of echo whatever created all of this, right? And so generosity is a huge one for me. Like I think that's probably like the holiest, most like godlike thing to do is to be generous with everything you have, because everything's been given to you. Like nothing, like I didn't like create the soil that brings up seeds, right? Like I didn't create the seed that has been programmed to create an apple tree that I can eat from. And we've talked and you've shared in this podcast, like being aware of those things, right? Slowing down to notice them helps me to be generous. And my cousin actually, just since you're always getting quotes, he quoting him of like, he argues that the only thing that, what did he say? He said the only peace that can come from money is by giving it away. And it is only through generosity. Like, whether you are using it to like buy things or to satisfy certain needs, you'll never get as much peace and fulfillment from when you actually just give it away. And you're just being generous, like you were saying, like wholeheartedly, not like I'm doing you a favor. Like you're just the same way it rains, right? Like it's not because we are owed something. It's just, it's because there's something that's more generous than we are that just rains on us, whether we're not even deserving. Again, just putting out
that's
statements.
A great point.
So just like, building on what you said, I think that's being generous is definitely something it takes being aware, because living in this world, for sure, there's so many things that are telling you don't be generous because you might need that tomorrow, right? And like you were saying, like, if you're living in today, there's enough worries today. You don't have to worry about tomorrow. Like it allows you to then be present in the moment. What other things, unless you could share on what I said, or like, what other things are you trying to be rooted in?
Well, religion is definitely something that I'm heavily rooted in. I'm a Christian, major follower of Jesus Christ, always and forever. I'd like to be more rooted in I'm not perfect, but
none of us are, man.
I'm close to it. I'm joking. I'm joking.
Here comes that confidence.
But seriously, I think that the number one and most fundamental thing for me really is giving that understanding to people, because I feel like I've come into a lot of conflict in my life because of is unawareness a word?
Yeah.
Okay, my unawareness to other people's feelings when I say certain things. And trust me, I never mean anything with bad intention. Like, that's just not who I am. So there's certain times where I'll say something and it may be viewed as insensitive to what someone else is feeling, but I feel that that could also, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, and I'd actually love to get your opinion on
For
this.
sure.
So if I say something that is perceived as insensitive,
Uh-huh.
for one, yes, I should probably learn to maybe rephrase that, but also it's also on the individual
Mm-hmm.
to learn how to perceive as well,
Mm-hmm.
potentially. So, I mean, what are your thoughts there?
Um, I think like anything, it's situational. Um, but I would say yes. I think there's an opportunity on both sides. I think there's an opportunity for that person to show great grace and maturity, and you can say the most racist, like terrible thing in the world, but they'd be like, hold up, like, how, what made you came to that like perspective? You know, like how does it make you feel when you say things like that, right? It's always an opportunity for both, right? So, um, I think yes, both parties are responsible for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. I need to be more rooted in, honestly, I said this earlier, but that experience that I had in Calabria,
Mm.
I think that since coming back to the States, I've lost a very big level of living within that.
Mm.
And I'd like to retrieve it. And although I'm thinking that I just might have to just move back completely and
Yeah.
stay there forever to really just always have that within me to
Mm-hmm.
the degree that I'd like it to be. But that's one thing that's definitely drastically diminished inside of me was I all I do is work for the most part. Like
Mm.
it's really what I love to do and play basketball. I like to play sports a lot, and which is exercise, and that's so necessary. But I'd like to be return to being more rooted in just that appreciation of the small things that actually are the macros
Mm-hmm.
in life. So like family time and truly quality time, not just being in the same room. A lot of people often think that you hang out with a person and you spend time, you're in the same room, but for 3 hours you each of you are just on your own phone, but like it's really not quality time. Like
Mm-hmm.
I think when you can set all the distractions aside and really become descriptive with how that time should look, that would be the definition of quality time for you. That's when you'll get it. And yeah, and being very structured will
Mm-hmm.
get you there. Being very structured with your time and with everything. And like for me, honestly, starting a business was very beneficial in regard to creating a structure of my time and understanding what needs to be done by when and just timelines, deadlines, everything. But that also very, very positively affected the way that I was able to allocate time to my family, to and the way that I would spend time with them.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's so crucial and so necessary and something that I definitely need to work on.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah.
I mean, I think you definitely have a head start. I dare to say that you're young, but I don't mean that in a way like that you're any less than. I think you're super wise. I just think, man, you just have such a beautiful like road ahead of you to be even aware of those things, right? And so early on into your business, to even start thinking about like how you treat your employees instead of like we just need to make money, and yeah, man, you're doing an amazing job
We
for
will
sure.
make a ton of money by treating each other great.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Like
I agree.
that's
There's
what people
definitely
don't
something to it.
understand.
Yeah.
A lot of people attend to relationships or even business relationships with a very transactional mindset.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that, if you're just really genuine with how you reach out to these people and, oftentimes and most times, honestly, a large portion of the revenue we've even generated has come from organic interactions.
Mm.
Like the people that we hit up with a purely sales focused and incentivized email or call, it doesn't
You're fine, dude.
okay, it doesn't happen that way. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
people feel that you're trying to sell them something. Oftentimes they run the other way.
Yeah.
But when you can actually resonate with somebody and create some type of relationship where they understand that you actually see value in what they're doing and you can also add value to that value,
Mm-hmm.
it's oftentimes it works out best because not only, for instance, you're creating a relationship off of something that you have a passion about and they have a passion about, but there's mutual interest, and with mutual interest, by extension of that, you always create something beautiful. I've never seen a team that's all thoroughly passionate about something not create something great. And I've seen a team of people that don't get along and it's a disaster, and I've been a part of teams like that. You know what I mean? So it's wise to always attend to things with a very positive mindset, but also open mindset to being able to resonate and be valued as well.
Yeah.
It's important to be valued. So it needs to be a mutual effort.
To care for people, like you're saying, like care for your relationships. Have you ever heard of Black Swan?
The movie?
I don't know if there's a movie called Black Swan, but it's like the Black Swan group or Black Swan. Yeah, I think that's what it's called.
I'm not sure I have.
So, and they have the guy who created it has a book. It's called Never Split the Difference. I may have this wrong, but so it's this book about this guy who was a negotiator, and he talks about like all his different experiences negotiating like kidnappings in like Haiti, or like bank robbers, and so I guess like negotiators, the people who are talking to the other people on the phone, like they share like stories and they share like wisdom and like methods with each other. And so in this book, he shares like what worked for him and like what's been like kind of pretty much like his methods are like the ones that are being duplicated the most, but they can also be used in anything, in business and talking to your wife. And one of them that comes to mind, that I think at the core is, it really is forcing you to build a relationship, to really like ask more about that person and connect, is that like when you ask somebody to do something, ask it in a negative way. So have you ever heard of this?
Yeah,
So
for
like
sure.
so like instead of asking my son like, hey, can you take out the trash, and I'm expecting a yes, I ask him, hey, would you mind, or would it be impossible to take out the trash right now? Right? Two things happen. Just the way our brains work, by saying no, there's more power in saying no, right? So it kind of leans into, so if I ask, is it impossible to take out the trash right now? He's like, no, it's not. And he gets to feel empowered and he's doing what I'm asking him to do.
Yeah.
The other thing is that if he says yes, right, it is impossible, it creates a conversation. It creates a connection, and saying like, oh, what's going on? Like, why is it like, what's stopping you right now? Or like, is it like, you do feel a certain way? Do you have other priorities, right? Instead of just expecting a yes or no and making it transactional, right? I'm actually, it doesn't always happen this way, but I'd imagine that like, that's why that method works so well, is that when somebody really can't do something, instead of just being a no and that's it, you're opening up like this connection, this conversation of like figuring out how you can both win, instead of just making it about always you, right?
Yeah.
Getting the yes. But yeah, it's really, really dope book. I'll have to share it with you if you're interested.
Absolutely. Yeah. Always. In addition to that, I feel that you're actually putting them in a position to affirm themselves that they can do something. You know what I mean? Like, you're putting them in a position when you say, would it be impossible to do this? You're giving them the chance to find the response or find the answer themselves rather than dictating over them. So you're giving them the opportunity to affirm to themselves that, yes, this is not impossible. And then they're actually more relieved and almost feel in a position of control to make the decision to say, yes, I will do that. So I feel like that's a beautiful.
That's a good point. I'm gonna have to do that more often. I try to do it with my son. I do it less often than I should. I was trying to train him a little bit, like that skill of doing that. I got to get back on that for sure.
I have a question for you.
For sure, yeah.
What has been the toughest thing to teach your kids, and what has been something that you want your kids? What is something that you want your kids to stick to as they grow?
I think generosity is one of them. Yeah, that you know, don't hesitate to be generous. Um, and one thing that we talk about often, like I try to talk with my kids, are the things that I feel like like if I feel myself running away from it, I try to like, no, we need to talk about that. Like, so things like sex, like when it's like appropriate, or like what is sex? Like, cause even growing, I didn't grow up necessarily like super like Christian, like legalistic household, you know, where it's like, you know, no having sex till you get married. And I don't necessarily want to oppress my kids with that either. Um, but I do want to talk about like what is, you know, the purpose of sex. Like sex is not this negative taboo thing. I feel like if I put more barriers around it and more negativity, then like how do I expect my like son or daughter to be comfortable having sex the night of their married, like they get
Yeah.
married? That doesn't work. Like to turn on and off, you know, like I've been told my whole life how don't have sex, you know, don't have
Yeah.
kids, you're too young. Like it's this negative thing. And then it's supposed to be pleasurable all of a sudden when they
Yeah.
get married. It doesn't make sense. So like I don't have the answer. And I was just talking with another couple over the weekend of like our kids and like getting married and like what are our rules or expectations. And I'm like, I don't know. We're living in a different time than in the Bible, and some people may hate that comment. It is culturally different. I think parameters are a little different. But I think keeping that open conversation of like, what's your intention with having a relationship with somebody? What's your intention with sex? Because sex has like a purpose, right? And like emotions involved. So I think, because I have two that are a little older, like a 12 and a 14-year-old, and they're only going to get like, it feels like they're getting older faster.
Yeah.
I don't want them to be scared of those conversations. So if anything, like to help them get more comfortable with difficult conversations, I think that'll pay dividends like to my grandkids, you know, like to stop keeping these topics in the dark and taboo.
Yeah.
Like I know they're difficult. I know they're uncomfortable. Like even talking about money, you know, and the budget, and like when I was just talking yesterday, like, you know, can we go get ice cream? Well, let's look at how much money I have instead of like, well, maybe, or yes, I'm not sure. Like, can we afford it or not? Like be open with that instead of like keeping money as this taboo thing that I can't talk about with my kids. So I think, so to answer your question is like more of those topics that we tend to not talk with our kids. I want to lean into that,
Yeah.
in the best way I can, without scaring them off, without like discuss. It's fine if they get disgusted. I'm always okay with it. But I'm hoping that they feel more comfortable with it. They feel empowered by it. They're not as uncomfortable. And they know they can come and talk to me like about those things like in the future.
So you're opening up a world of transparency for them.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's really good. I think it's imperative to be able to talk about anything and everything.
Mm-hmm.
I actually used to want to start a podcast called Anything and Everything. Whoever wants it, you got it.
Yeah.
But yeah, to your point, you mentioned that you don't want to create too many barriers around certain topics, and I think that actually that type of behavior and curating the responses that come by extension of that behavior and the barrier creation is actually rebelliousness. Is actually when you tell, for instance, when I was younger, my mother always told me not to smoke weed. I got to smoking weed. You know what I mean? Like I did it because like I was trying to figure out what she was trying to explain to me what was so bad about it. You know what I mean? And I soon found out that there was nothing bad about it in that time.
Right.
Of course I was young.
Uh-huh.
But as I grow, there's a lot of negative aspects to it.
Mm-hmm.
It really is, in my opinion. It really is. What is it? What's the word? You become addicted to it. It's an addictive drug for sure. However, I think when you're young and you're told not to do something, you tend to want to go against that. And so that, I think that's really smart of you and incredible actually, is to not create so many barriers around too many things, because it'll give them the desire to go and find out for themselves.
Yeah. I think a lot of the things we're trying to keep our kids from, we'd probably do them more justice telling them the mistakes that we made instead of just telling them it's bad.
Exactly.
Like tell them about times I got drunk in Vegas and made bad decisions, right? Like they can listen to a podcast or they can like, I've shared certain things. Like I've even had to like, I shared like with my daughter not too long ago about how, like I was like, I cheated on my wife. Right. Like, and, And so, because the topic of like cheating came up, and I was like, I didn't want to be a hypocrite, and so I just brought it up like how I've experienced that as well. Um, and then she shared like, I know this is a little bit of her business, but I'm sure it was my I was, but she just shared like how, and I didn't notice it, like I did it while she was already born. Like I had her, she was my daughter, right? And the impact that it had on her, like today, it just opened up like a gate for me to realize that I had like, um, if you want to talk like really just like sinned against her, but like offended her, like hurt her in an unknowing way that I didn't know, like unintentional, like offense. And like we got to like, she shared like how like that hurt her, and I got to ask for forgiveness, and I feel like when we can just like, these stories, these lessons are already embedded in our history, right? If it's not you, then talk about your parents who maybe, did drugs, or their grandparents that maybe like just did something terrible, or you feel like it's that you're trying to keep your kids from. And again, I feel like that's what the Bible's doing. It's just telling the stories. Like the Jewish culture, dude, they're pretty hot, as in like humble, open, and transparent. Of like they got everybody's like skeletons in that thing. Like their history of all their greats come with all of the skeletons of like, rape, murder. They don't like put them in history books like we do and make them like these idols and like these perfect people that brought our country into existence. Like, no, we're going to tell you everything that they did and all the bad things and how they weren't the chosen one.
Yeah.
you know? And I feel like that, being more aware of that, it's not fun. It's not easy. But figuring out that like, if I want to help my kids get some wisdom, it's as easy as sharing them like how I screwed up, instead of just telling them like it's bad and bad people do it and these are the bad things that are going to happen to you. It's like, no, this is what happened. This is what I experienced. It didn't go so great for me. Or maybe like it wasn't too bad and maybe you don't have anything to fear. And maybe that will like kind of get them away from it more than like, putting in fear. So yeah,
That's a great point. I think being able to relate to something is far better education than anything else. Like if I can remember back in elementary school, for instance, the best teachers I ever had taught me through the mistakes that they had made versus telling me that I'm just wrong. You know what I mean? So I think being able to relate to people, and ultimately that helps create a better relationship anyway. So I can imagine as a father that's one of the most powerful things you could do, is to have them relate to your experiences of the past versus just straight up telling them that they're wrong.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I'm in the most challenging area. Like my kids are, like I said, getting older. Haven't done it in all the topics yet, but I got some ones that I'm tackling for sure, that are coming up pretty quick, and just got to be sure I stay on top of it, before they learn in other places. Yeah, man, this has been good.
Amazing.
How much time do you have? What are we at? An hour 45.
Wow.
Yeah.
I mean, we can cut it here if you want, but I'm good to keep going.
I know. Is there anything but I always like to check in definitely with my guests. Like, is there anything in particular you want to share? Anything like that's on your mind that's like kind of still like wrestling inside of you? Always want to do a last check-in before I cut anything off.
Wrestling. I think I've shared a majority of the things that I'm currently wrestling with that I can enhance or elevate in my life. But something that I want to share is that we were filming a documentary last year on the road to our fashion show, and we had the Ronald Reagan Presidential Library for the night for the show, the couture
dope.
show.
Yeah.
And we were filming a documentary leading up to the point of the show and after the show, of course. And that'll be coming out, and we're trying to get it onto Amazon Prime or something, some big platform that displays documentaries or docuseries or whatever.
Oh man, it's awesome. Definitely keep an eye out for that.
It's gonna be incredible.
So was that like I don't know how much you can tell me, but like so it is like, I know you're not like fashion. It's more so, what was it? How you described it? Not fashion anymore. It's like product design. Or
we're still essentially working within fashion design. apparel manufacturing with product development, and then also packaging, and also branding. So we do brand refreshes, brand identities for other organizations and individuals as well, whether they're celebrities, influencers, and have a personal image that they desire. We cater to them.
That's exciting, man. Well, everybody, Adam Perry, white piano, Italian, entrepreneur, discovered himself there, like probably almost has a citizenship at this point.
I should. They should give me the key to the city, man. Yeah. I'm the one.
To the country. There's that confidence. Love it. All right, y'all. Well, appreciate you, Adam. I really do. Man, this is beautiful. Just chopping it up with you. Until next time, everybody. Peace.
Thank you, guys.